Okay, so this is one way to achieve this, and it's not wrong, but there is also another way um, that can be a little less manual, more painless as well in terms of what if you had more colors, right? What if you had kind of more variety in that one specific column of your data set? How can we set this up to be more robust? A way that we can do that is by using an array. And so if you are not familiar with the concept of strings and arrays, I highly recommend a tutorial by the Coding Train, which explains the concept of strings and arrays really well, and I'll link that down below. What I'm basically going to do is I'm going to store all of the colors in order in one container called an array. Okay, so the way that I'm explaining this is probably going to be really similar to how the coding train explains the concept of arrays, but essentially you can think of an array as kind of like this big container with, that can store a list or a set of values or strings or numbers, anything. Now, instead of me inputting all of my fill colors manually into this really, really long if statement, what I can do is I can say, okay, I'm going to put the color yellow into here, this very specific shade of yellow, and then I'm going to put the color white, a specific shade of red into here, and then this specific purple, and so forth, right? So think of it as like this palette, right? That I'm going to contain all of them in what is called an array. So this is this whole thing. And then I'm going to say, so these are in order as the order of the colors shown in my data set. And so essentially what I can do is, all right, well, every time that it has a new color, so meaning, here we start at yellow, right? Here we start at yellow, but then however many rows down, we're gonna go from yellow to white. And then however many rows down, it's gonna go from white to red, and it's gonna go from red to purple. And so these are the points, or what I call the data triggers. It's similar to the one that we exercised just now with like, if the character count is more than 10 or 5 or something, right? In this case, if there's these kind of like new information introduced into the list, these are the points that we want to capture. We want to say, okay, here, start with this color. But then when you get to this point of the data, move on to this color. Use that to fill my circles. And then once you keep reading the data, and it's going to keep reading, it's going to keep drawing the data because of our for loop. And once you get to this point, move on to this color. And then once you get to this point, move on to this color. And so what that allows us to do is it becomes this more robust mechanism of reading your data and having a system where if it processes new information that's different to the one before it, it has this kind of container that, okay, I know what the next value you want me to go to is. Now let me try to demonstrate it. First thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to cancel all this out. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build out my palette, right? Because I'm playing with colors here. So it doesn't have to be colors in your case. It can be, titles or names or anything. An array can be used to store any type of any data type in a collection, right? So in my case, I'm going to build out the hex codes that I need in correspondence with kind of the colors in order as listed in my data set. What am I going to do? Okay, first, I'm going to just start my array. I'm going to name it maybe viz colors to differentiate it from colors here. So colors, maybe I'll rename this. I'll rename this to like color data, right? And so because it is referring to the color that is found in my data set. This is just to avoid confusion. I know these are really long variables. So I'm going to build out my array. And to do that, an array is specified by square brackets. Okay, that's how they start and that's how they end. and every value that is stored in an array has to be separated by commas. So in my case, I'm going to be storing hex codes. Now, if you go all the way back to our module 1 about how we specify colors, you'll know that hex codes have to be contained in quotation marks for them to be processed by P5. Okay, so I'm going to pull out my hex code cheat sheet over here, and I'm also going to pull up my data that's shown here, and I'm going to build them out, fill them into this array. So my yellow, okay, so what I've just done I've just built out my array. So this is my array right now, and it has 8 colors in total, which is the total number of colors that I have in my data set. Now the next thing is so similar to the for loop, where we have something called this variable I, which is basically the index. We delved into this a little bit more in our previous video. The I grows in value starting from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth, however many times we want our for loop to run. We also need an index to go through an array. And so this array, for example, so in this for loop, our index would go to the number of total rows. So it would kind of run the for loop 102 times. We have 8 colors. I'm going to create an index variable that will go into this array. And so in this array, the index, would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Because it's 7, so there's 8 colors in total. So we need this variable to be basically the indicator, or it's like the pawn piece in your board game to say that, okay, now we're moving to the next step. Now we're moving to the next step. So that's what the index variable is for. So I'm just going to call it like color index. And then I'm going to specify it as 0 because that's where we start at. These are the colors that we want to use to visualize in our sketch, right? So we have our visualization colors, and we have the index that will go into those colors to pull it for us one by one. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. We need to have a mechanism for telling our P5 program that, okay, right now I'm at the color yellow, but if I'm no longer at the color yellow, meaning once I've reached white, you will need to pull me the next color in that palette, right? So again, we are trying to capture these pink points here. We're trying to capture the specific moments in our list or in our data set where the information changes. But before we can kind of tell the computer, if it's different, then do this, we need to kind of give the computer, okay, well, what color are we starting at? And the color that we're starting at is yellow. And so what I'm going to do is actually introduce a new variable called maybe like current color. And let's maybe I'll use like a shape here, but the current color, I'll give it this diamond. And then in setup, we're only going to do this once, but I'm going to say the current color is the table, get string from the table. And so what I need for to get a string from the table is row and column, right? So I want this to be row 0, meaning the first ever row, the current color to be the first ever row in the color column. And then we're going to enter the for loop. Now this for loop, right? Our for loop is what drives P5 to read and draw based on all of our data. And in our for loop, we already have the color data variable, meaning the colors that we actually have in our data set, right? So current color here is just one value. The color data, which exists in our for loop, is everything. In the first loop, it's yellow. The second loop, it's yellow. Third loop, it's yellow. In the, let's say this is the 20th, but in like the 20th loop, it's white. And in the 50th loop, it's red. So we have a current color. We have current color, color data. color data, right? And color data is actually like everywhere, but let's stay here for the time being. What we're going to introduce is this: if the current color is not, which so this is the P5 symbol for is not. If the current color is not color data, then just give me, so this is all still above the circle. If current color is not the color data, give me a black stroke. Otherwise, if not, just give it the normal, original white stroke. Now let's see what happens. Okay, so you're seeing here at the moment, at this point, at least at this point in the code, current color is yellow. Color data is also yellow. When they are the same, they're going to keep giving us the thin white stroke on the circles, which is this. This is all the data points that are yellow. Now, where it starts giving us these big, thick strokes is when the current color is no longer the same as the color data. Why? Well, because the current color is still yellow, right? So this variable still means yellow because of what we've specified here, that it's the first row, right? But at this point in the visualization, color data, so the data, the color that's extracted from the data, is already all the way here. So they're no longer the same value. One is white and one is yellow. And so we'll understand this first. We managed to capture the first point of difference, right? We need to keep up, and we need to say, okay, once color data has reached this point, meaning once color data has reached a checkpoint where the data differs, I need you to keep up, and I need you to go here. The current color is no longer yellow, the current color is now white. How do we write this in code form? We need to kind of reset it. We need to adjust what the value of current color is. And we need to say current color is now color data. It's as simple as that. So basically this moves current color from where it was, which is there. Now that's when we want the current color to be, okay, now you're at white, right? So I'm gonna stop talking. Let's just demonstrate that now. And if I refresh this, and now this is where it gets exciting. Now we can see, so these black circles are where those pink points are. So because what we're doing is essentially, current color, you are now white. So this little reset that we've set up, the current color is now white. Color data is going to go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so forth. It's going to keep reading, and then it's going to hit another point of difference. And so every time that they are not the same, that they are no longer the same color, it's going to give us that black stroke.